Ernest Clarkson. I'm better known as Foxy. If you ask anybody who Ernest Clarkson is, they don't know, but they know Foxy. That's been my nickname since I was in grade 2. I've lived in Winnipegosis all my life. Come from a family of 14 children. I had 8 brothers and 5 sisters. We all grew up in Winnipegosis. We're all born and raised here. I come from a poor family. We had hard times growing up, very hard times. There was times there wasn't much food in the house, and a lot of the time you had to get your food from the bush, go and get rabbits or partridge or ducks or whatever to make your meal out of. As we grew up, got a little bit older, and whatever, times eased up, and we started living a little bit better and better. And I'm still here. I was born in 1945. I done my school in Winnipegosis. I only went to grade 9. I failed my first year of grade 9, so when I started the second year, I was sick of school already. I was just about 16 years old, and I said, that's it, I quit. So I just quit and started out working. I worked in the box factory. There was a box factory in Winnipegosis where they made wooden fish boxes and whatever. So I worked there for the first couple of years of my working life, and then, like, it wasn't a full-time job. It was just part-time. In the winter, it used to shut down for a bit. And then I done commercial fishing on the lake. I worked for Harry Brown and Harvey Brown, commercial fishing on the lake in the winter time. And in the summertime, I just done odd jobs, worked for farmers, and any job you could get, you took the job because you were young, and jobs were hard to come by then, and whatever little bit of money you made, you had to make it yourself, because my parents didn't have money to dish out for all of us to be, and we weren't well off. We didn't have much. As we got older, then we started buying our own stuff out of the money we made, and that's.
Did you get a job right out of high school, or when you finished grade 9 there?
Yeah, well, that's where I worked in the box factory. I had a job there for the summer before I quit school. I got a job there for the summer months. Mm-hmm. And then after, when the guy knew I quit school, he hired me back in the winter time. So I worked there. I worked there for a couple or 3 years, like in the box factory, making boxes. And it was a lumber mill. It had a planer where it planed lumber and sawed lumber and whatever. And then after that, when I was 18, I went out to Ontario and Quebec. I worked in the bush there with a mine, a geological crew that was like doing the pre-mining stuff, finding mines and cutting bushwork and grids and surveying and whatever. And I worked there for that one summer. I was in Ontario for a couple months, then I went out to Quebec for a couple months, and then that job was finished, so I came back home. And after that, I joined the Teamsters Union. I used to work around here as a truck driver too for Delroy Grennan and I used to haul suckers to Good Harbor or lumber or fish or cattle or whatever he hauled, and I used to do that with his trucks for a couple summers anyway. And then after that, I started out and got jobs with the Teamsters Union. I got into the Teamsters Union, and in my later years, I done work at Kettle Rapids, Long Spruce, Limestone, and Genpeg, all those hydro dams there. I worked there as a heavy equipment or a heavy truck driver. Like, we used to drive rock wagons and 50-ton Euclids and stuff like that. And I had done that for 10 years. I think I was in the Teamsters Union and doing that. And in the meantime, I got married, and my wife was a nurse in the hospital here, so she was always home, and I had to go out and work. Then I went to the pipelines, and I worked on the pipeline in Saskatchewan and Manitoba as a fuel truck driver. And like, even before that, I drove the fuel truck for Shell Oil here for 2 years, and any job I could get, I took. That kept me at home for a while. But when you couldn't stay at home, you just went wherever your job took you.
Yeah.
And that lasted until 1988. In 1987, I came back from Limestone and told my wife, I don't want to go back there. I want to try and find something around here. So that's when a Gulf Oil shop by the river came up for sale. So we purchased that in 1988. I stayed in that business till 2 years ago, till 2019. I sold out December 31st, 2019 to my nephew, Lindsay. Riley and Lindsay bought it. And that was 32 years I was in business there, running the gas bar.
Yeah.
Now I'm just retired and don't do nothing. Do as little as possible, let's put it that way. I still keep busy, but in 98, 97, I bought 10 head of cows. Then I just farmed them out with a guy. He looked after them for me, and over the few years later, I had 40 head, and then I bought a quarter of land of my own and rented a quarter for my nephew. I farmed also at the same time while I was working at the gas bar, and I farmed, and in 2019 I sold my cows too. I sold out my cows and then I sold out my gas bar, and it was getting too much for me, and I used to make my own hay and had a tractor, a baler, and mower and whatever that you do, and I worked hard. Like when I worked the gas bar, I worked 7 days a week, all the time, like year after year. I never had, I don't know what a holiday is. I've never ever had one. Like always work. I kept that gas bar open every day of the week, and because in them days there was a lot more traffic. It seemed like everybody that had cars were always running around and whatever. Now people drive to Dauphin to get their gas, or get, there's just because they do a lot of shopping in Dauphin, where in them days they didn't. They shopped locally and whatever. But the gas bar was good to me over the years. When we were kids, like I said, we were very poor, and we were one behind the other in our family. Like 4 boys, me and my four brothers anyway, were all pretty well in line. And we hung out mostly together because other kids didn't like to play with us because we were poorer than them or whatever. You were sort of looked down on in the community, but as we grew up, we sort of excelled at things like baseball or playing. We used to play road hockey, and we had enough kids in our own family with a couple neighbors that lived across the street, or 3 neighbors or 4, that to play hockey all the time. And then we used to play on that road day and night. People still talk about that. Oh, I can remember the Clarksons growing up. The boys were playing hockey on the road day and night. You couldn't, even at 10 o'clock at night, and our parents are yelling at us to get home to bed, and we're still out there playing hockey.
Yeah.
But then after then, the other kids in the town saw the fun we could have ourselves. We didn't need them to be. And then they would come and join in. They wanted to join in with us. And so then pretty soon we got all the kids in town wanted to play with us, even though we were poor or whatever. And we had to wear hand-me-downs. People gave us their used clothes for kids or whatever, and we wore them and whatever. And some kids were discriminatory, but most of them were good kids that we grew up with, Ukrainian kids or German kids or whatever. Like they were all. We live in an ethnic community in Winnipegosis. There's all kinds of nationalities, and they learned to grow with us, and we grew with them, and we had good times. Like it was great. We used to play around these back lanes here. Hit the tin can or games like we never stayed in the house, not like kids nowadays. The house was the last place you wanted to be. You got out of there early in the days you could or whatever. I remember in our early days we didn't even have money for a ball, so we took a sock and filled it up with old junk and whatever and made this ball, and that was our football that we played with. And summertime we'd play move up baseball, like you just pitch a ball and hit it, and then you'd run the bases and 3 outs, and then if you got out, then you had to move out in the field, and the next person moved up, and that's how we played, and we done a lot of that. Like sports, we done lots. All any kind of sports, cricket or that or football. Like we used to play on the boulevard over here. That was a wide open space there by the train. The train tracks run down there, but we play on the sides. It was big enough, and we played touch football and all the time. But a lot of guys from the town, the kids, all played that. It was great growing up. Like from when we first were young, very young, like 6 or 7 or whatever. That's when we were very poor, and then after we started getting better and better, and then life was good, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah.
You know, that's when they built the arena in 52, or I think the first arena we had was built in 1952. Then we started playing hockey and like joined the hockey clubs and whatever, if we could afford it. And to Camperville, to the Mission, they used to have at Camperville, they had a big a mission, it was called. It was a residential school, I guess is what it was. Now you find out that's what it was. It was called the Mission in them days. And they had a hockey team, and we had hockey teams in town. We used to go there. They'd come here and play. And I think even Duck Bay had a team that used to come and play. And the arena was good for all the kids, because that really got kids out to go and play hockey, practice hockey or whatever, you know, and skate, just to skate even, you know.
Gets them out of the house doing something.
Yeah, right. Like I said, in our younger days, nobody stayed in the house. No kids. Like all the kids around the area, they all done outdoor sports every chance they got. Right from school, right home, put your books in the house and get your hockey stick and out on the road. And if you didn't have a hockey stick, you made one with a board or whatever, you know. But we enjoyed life. Like we enjoyed the outdoors, and we were healthy. And like I say, all of our family, our 13 brothers and sisters. I lost 2 brothers and a sister in the last 3 years. That's the first ones out of our family. Like my mom and dad passed away before that, but siblings, that's the first ones we lost in the family, and they were already 75. What was along that waterfront, those pictures that I had there yesterday is no more. There's not a trace of that along that waterfront any place. And it's sad, because that defined Winnipegosis. That's what started Winnipegosis, was the fish and lumbering. The fish especially, and the fur. Well, the fur started it. People came with canoes and whatever, the explorers, and found the abundance of fur and whatever. Then they found out the lake was loaded with fish, so then people started moving in for the fish, and then, like when they got the boats, they had to have a channel made to hide in, like in a storm or whatever. You had to have channels, you had to have places to unload your boat where you could come into shore, and that dredge done that and made them over the years for the fishermen, And even 2 years ago, me and Jack Fleming went out the mouth of the river, out in the lake to lift some nets, and we got stuck there. Like the channel is silting in now, and when low water, the boats are getting stuck even in the mud there, and there's no way you can clean it. Our dredge is gone, and there's, you know, they have to bring a barge in and put a backhoe on top of it now and do that, and I don't know if they'll ever do it, you know. It's sad to see what happened to the fishing industry from what it used to be, you know. I can't really say what the challenges were. I guess just making a living was one of the big challenges, and all the other boys would get the jobs before the Métis, like before we would as kids even, but we would go looking every Saturday because it was no school. You would go down to the Booth fisheries or down to the rafts where the lumber rafts used to come down the lake. The boats would pull them and they'd take the lumber off there and dry pile it all over down at the yard there, and we would go down there and find a job. Somebody would be looking for somebody to do something all the time. In them days, everything was done manually. There wasn't much forklifts or tractors or whatever. It was horses and wagons that loaded the lumber by hand on there, and you off that raft and took it down to the dry pile, and then the pile didn't put laths across it so it would air out and pile it up high, and those jobs, they were always looking for somebody to do some of them jobs. Like when we were off on Saturdays, we always had a job, or go out in the fields like picking stones or cleaning grain fields or whatever. There was no stone pickers or nothing in them days. These were your stone pickers, your hands, and you put them on a wagon and took them to a pile and threw them off, and we used to do that and get 20 cents or 30 cents an hour. We worked for the first time me and my brother Jim worked out, I think we were 10 years or 11 years old picking stones for a guy, and he gave us 10 cents an hour, and we worked 10 hours in that day. And in the hot sun for $1. Then it went up to 20 cents and then 30 cents, over the next summer. But to have 50 cents on a Saturday night, you could go down there used to be a theater just down the street where they showed a movie, and you could go to the movie and have popcorn and a pop, and you still had 10 cents or 20 cents left from your 50 cents. So you didn't make much money, but it would buy a lot more than it would. Today you wouldn't even, you'd throw 50 cents away, but in those days you didn't. I long for my young days again. You sit and think and wish you could relive those days, with some of the things today, but relive it, eh?
Yeah.
It was just.
So in what year was the town of Winnipegosis formed?
It was formed in 1890, because we had, this book is 1990, and this is the history 100 years, this is the 75th anniversary of Winnipegosis Incorporated, when it was incorporated. So that would be, this was 1990, 1915, eh? That's when it was incorporated. But I mean, it was here a lot longer than that, but just not. That's when Winnipegosis was incorporated to them. It was called Little Muddy Water first, well, that's when most of the history is from. Like after it was incorporated, that stuff that happened here before that is just stuff that was found in the Dauphin press rooms, or Dauphin had more where they stored all the stories or whatever that happened around the area, and Winnipegosis didn't have any archive place or anything like that. Nobody kept a record. Like the odd guy kept a little record of what he'd done himself, but not in general.
Not the whole community.
Right. There is nothing from our younger years that you see kids doing nowadays. Hardly anything. You don't see no kids. Very seldom you see kids on the road. I see a couple down towards my end of town that put a net out on the road and play hockey on the road, or play touch ball out in the field or whatever. You don't see none of that. Only, I think maybe at the Bible camp in the summertime they do some of them, those outdoor games but for kids just to gather and do that, you don't see it no more. They're just nothing that we done when we were young is done nowadays by young people, and that's mostly the sports outside, or we lived in the bush. In the summertime we'd go, there was bush all around Winnipegosis in them days, and we lived in there, just go in there and make trails in the bush, build a fort, or do whatever, smoke in the fort where we're not supposed to be smoking, and those times were great, and nowadays you don't see it. I still walk in the bush there in the summertime and relive some of my memories from when I was 10 years old or 12 years old in that same bush.
Yeah. Why do you think it is that it's changed that way? Like, what do you see?
Well, I think it's too, like, I don't know how you call it, but too automated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything is, like, kids are now with these things, these games, and, you know, all that stuff. That's their life now. The outdoors is not, it's hard to get kids to get off the couch. Even for manual labor, you can't find people to do manual labor. It's getting harder and harder. I don't know what's going to happen in 10 or 15 years. You're just for stuff that needs to be done manually with your hands, like labor work, eh?
Yeah.
It's just harder and harder and harder to find. Like even the fishermen, they're having a hard time finding enough men to go out fishing, and like the commercial fishers, they hire 2 or 3 guys or 4 guys for the winter, like to go
out with them.
And it's just harder and harder to get anybody to go. That has changed. The attitude the kids have nowadays is different than in our days, where the outdoors were special to us, and.
Mm-hmm.
And now you could take a kid outside and ask them what kind of tree is this, what kind of tree is that. They wouldn't have a clue what you're talking about. And in our days, we knew every tree and whatever branch and what not so much the plants, but the trees we knew, because we picked berries off the hazel or saskatoons or choke cherries or cranberries or whatever. We done that, and that was part of our food chain.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't we were just doing it for fun. It was because we needed it.
Mm-hmm. It was a necessity.
Yeah, it was a necessity. Yeah, right. And even to grow a garden and hoe your potatoes or pull weeds or whatever, we had to do that when we were kids. And now you wouldn't know. You ask a kid, where does the potatoes come from? Some of them don't even know. Like, they don't know they're growing in the ground.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
from McDonald's.
Yeah, from McDonald's. That's right. That's where they figure. Like you ask them where stuff like that. They don't know.
Yeah.
But there again, now the Metis have these summer camps. That's good for kids. That shows them what the outdoors is all about. Like a lot of kids, especially from the city or the bigger towns, they don't know what bush life is like, to go even in the bush, to walk in the bush, or they wouldn't know what a hazelnut is. You say that, or like, it's just how times have changed from our time. We were taught them things that you go and pick these are hazelnuts, this is whatever, this is what you pick, and we would go, our family would go out on a Sunday to Red Deer Point and have a picnic there, and we'd pick saskatoons, or we'd pick raspberries or strawberries or whatever berries were in season at the time. Times have changed, no doubt about that. That's, I guess, in some places, maybe like Duck Bay, maybe they do that yet, but a lot of it, they still do. The kids are taught that though by their parents, whereas here, I don't think that many kids are taught, or in the big cities are not taught at all about that. You want berries, you go to Safeway and buy them. That's. I think everybody learned to accept it. Like as you went along, if somebody was selling products, they got more for their product. The products went up in price, so they increased the wages in price, like your wages for doing it, and it was good. Especially like in Winnipegosis, maybe not around the surrounding area, but like there was always some jobs in Winnipegosis, because in the summertime there was summer fishing on the lake, and they all brought their fish to the fish sheds. There was 2 big fish sheds there. Then they had the ice house, where there was no ice machines that made this ice, and you had to go in the winter time in the river and you cut it. There again, I worked on the ice gang, not just in Winnipegosis, but at Dawson Bay, at Channel Island, Whiskey Jack Island. They're all islands on the lake, and they had summer fishing stations there. So they, in the winter time, used to go on the lake, go to these camps in the winter time. About 12 or 15 of us guys from town here would get jobs.
Yeah.
If you were on unemployment or doing nothing or doing whatever you were doing, and you wanted to get on with the ice gang, you got on and went up north for 15, 20 days. You cut blocks of ice as big as this table, like out of the ice was 3 feet thick, but you sawed it and had breaking bars that you broke it off, and then you had a slide that went into a big building.
Mm-hmm.
And you got that, you got the jack behind the block of ice, and then they had horses or a bombardier that would pull that. There was a block and tackle way up at the top of the ice house, and then a rope through that and come down that sloop to the ice blocks and went over to the machine, the bombardier or horses, whatever was pulling the ice.
Yeah.
And it would go this way, and that ice would go up into there, and then it would slide into the building, and you guys inside there slid that ice and piled it all along the building, and you done 10 or 20 layers in that building. And it's a great big building. It's not, and at that time I think we were getting $12 a day plus our keep, like they fed us and whatever, and we got $12 a day. The first year I went on the ice gang, I think it was $8 a day, and the second time or third time I think was $12 a day, and you stayed there 15 or 20 days at this, on the lake, going from place to place and putting this ice up. And then they done it here in the big shed was along the river here, just north from the gas bar. There's nothing there now. Oh, there's a building there, and they done that, and they put that ice all in that thing. And then in the summertime when fishing was on, you'd go in that building and just with chisels and stuff and chip all that ice into small little pieces and throw it down a chute into another ice bin down at the bottom. And somebody was down there, and as the fish came off the boats, it was weighed, the box was weighed to a certain amount, and that ice was put on that fish, and it was slid into a train car. There was rollers there, and rolled it into the train car and piled it, and then the train took it to Chicago or wherever it was going. That's how the fish moved from here in those days. You know, and there was a lot of fishermen in them days, not compared to today. There was lots of fishermen. All the boats used to come armed. There was Booth Fisheries was a big outfit, and BC Packers was another one just down they were both side by each on the riverfront.
What is some words of wisdom you'd want to leave with the youth, the Métis youth of today?
The first thing is respect the land and treat it with a lot of respect, because that is one of the most important things that they're ever going to learn is the land itself. What harm you do to the land can last a lifetime. Other than that, just be proud of who you are and live your life. If you want to live the way the Métis people live, that's what you should do. Don't try to live like somebody else. If you're a Métis, live like a Métis, and live your life as a Métis. Be proud of who you are. Get out and do more and explore and find out what your land is all about. It's a big thing to know. Like, get out in the bush, go for a walk in the bush, just get out. Like, go to these summer camps where when they're offered to you, take your chance and go and learn what the land has to offer you, and get to know your land better.
Yeah.